Hi, I'm Jeff Bond, and welcome back to the Steward Chair, where we bring business leaders insights that go beyond the balance sheet to help you build a more resilient and lasting organization. Today, I have the honor of speaking with Sandy Moll, who leads multiple companies, including Advanced Business Solutions, DSM Holdings, and her newest venture, Jeremiah 2911 Capital. We're going to be unpacking the critical importance of living out your faith in the marketplace and how surrendering control can unlock true and lasting business growth. The conversation today is for every leader who knows that what's true and good in their personal life can also be the driving force behind their work. No matter what your faith tradition is, we believe that true competitive advantage isn't just about what you do, but how you do it. And we'll show you how to leverage your values to create a lasting legacy. But before we get started, if you haven't already, please follow this podcast wherever you're listening for future content and consider sharing it with a fellow leader. Thank you for being here, and let's dive in. Sandy, welcome to the Steward Chair.
Well, thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure. From the moment I got introduced to you and had a chance to learn a little bit from your leadership wisdom, it's really made an impact in my life already. And I'm really excited for our listeners who are business owners and leaders themselves to hear from all the experiences that you've had, all the stories you have to share. So thank you for already pouring into my life.
Well, I feel blessed to have gotten the chance to, so thank you.
You're very welcome. Well, we like to explore the concept of business leadership as a stewardship responsibility. So we view it as a long-term responsibility of a leader to care for what's been entrusted to them, whether it's people, mission, company, community, all the above. We belong to the chair. The chair doesn't belong to us. We're just simply keeping it warm for the next person. So when I talk about stewardship, I want to just anchor our conversation on what is that? What kind of emotions and thoughts does that evoke in you?
It really warms my heart in a sense of love, because I believe stewardship is living in love.
I love that. Yeah. And, the thing that I remember you talking about at one point is just how much you serve others. In fact, on your profile, you said that your perfect days are days where I can serve others in secret. And so this is a labor of love that you live every single day, and you've been in a consulting role. You've run multiple businesses throughout your lifetime. Why is that? Where does that desire to serve others in secret come from?
Well, it may have changed since last time we talked a little bit. So jump in if I miss something that impacted you. But I think the more I seek God, and the more I'm really chasing after God and trying to be the best version of myself and live in what He made me to be, the more things I believe He pours into me, and He gives me those abilities, and it's my job to run with them. And I have people ask me all the time, okay, I saw you started another company. What is this? And companies don't have to be big to have impact. I mean, they don't have to be an Amazon or a Garmin to have a lot of impact. And my belief is if God has put something on my heart, and I get a lot of times in my school of silence, I will say, okay, God, this is what I'm hearing, I think, but can you just, they say you shouldn't test Him. Well, you know what? Sometimes He wants you to, just to get a clarification. But I think it's really more about just being really clear on the path you're supposed to take to serve God. For me, that's what it is.
How is that? Well, let me back up for a minute, because I think it would be helpful for our listeners right now to just talk a little bit about the types of businesses that you've been running over the last several decades, and even some new ones that you're forming today, just to give some overall context, and then we'll jump back into that.
Do you want me to just go through them real quick?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so the one I spend probably most of my time with is Advanced Business Solutions, and we've been in business about 18 years. We started primarily to help the financial service realm, the banks and credit unions when they were going through some difficult times. We have expanded now where we do serve small and medium businesses also in a variety of ways. And that one really came, it kind of hit me in the face. It was one of those that I didn't set out to start. It was people started asking for help, and some contemplation. It was like, yes, we need to serve and help. And ABS just kind of has formed and grown, and we serve in 29 states now. Have a little bit of a unique business model, but the best days for me with ABS is when I get a call from one of our clients that says, because of you, I can get through most days, and I always get through days excited when I know that ABS has my back. And that's important to me, that we're serving them. My husband and I also have DSM Holdings, which is primarily a real estate investment company. My husband's passion is to fix things. We live on an operating farm, and he loves to fix equipment. He loves to do a lot of things. He's really in a season of his life now where he really, really loves to take homes that are getting ready to be destroyed, but if they have really good bones, and move them if needed, but make them really good and affordable housing for families, and make sure that they're safe and they're the way they should be for a family. We also have Jeremiah 29:11, which is one of our newer companies. It is actually a capital company. It's actually Jeremiah 29:11 capital. And for those of you, if you know what Jeremiah 29:11 is, it's for I know the plans I have for you, plans for you to prosper and not to harm you, plans to give you hope in a future. And we really believe in that God is a loving, inspirational God, and he wants us to prosper. He wants us to make money and be good stewards of everything he's given us. So Jeremiah 29:11 kind of came out a little bit of this season of the life that Dave and I are in. We thought, there's a lot of ways that you can serve. There's also a lot of ways you can be good stewards of money, and there's a lot of ways you can make money, which is using your money to make more money as being a good steward. If you know the parable of the talents, it's money, but also your talents that you need to use. And so we actually loan out money through Jeremiah 29:11 for other people that are either starting a new business or trying to do some real estate, or we've loaned out on machinery for a guy that was trying to do something. We really look at what the purpose is, and it's really to spur other entrepreneurs in a lot of different ways. And then we also have a commercial company, Brick House, that owns some commercial buildings, and then we have a event space that are actually our youngest son and daughter-in-law run, and then an operating farm.
So with all of that, and this is something that I've been thinking about, I know that you also work like 3 days a week, that you keep your notifications off on your phone, that you use that as a tool, that, you're very mindful about the time that you spend with God, with your family, being still. I know Psalm 46:10 has been a favorite verse of yours, of being still. So how do you manage all of what you just described? Because that seems like a lot at the surface level. And what are some of the core principles or values that you live by to make sure that you're stewarding all of those things really well?
Well, I think the foundation is that we, as my husband and I, a lot of business owners and a lot of people, they chase things or they chase money. We chase God. And so it's really about every morning, when I got up this morning, it was still very dark and it was so calm and peaceful. And I had my time in silence with just me and God. And it's like, God, what do you want me to do today? What are the things I need to focus on today? And some days when I ask that question, I get a big list and I go, okay, wait a minute. Let's prioritize those. But I really find that we as human beings live in busyness more than business. And if we just take time to slow down and spend more time with God, he makes sure everything that he wants to get done gets done. And if it's not something he wants to get done, then it's okay if it doesn't get done. You know, I try real hard not to work on Mondays and Fridays, as you said. There are days, yesterday I did have a meeting because it was the only day this young lady could meet. That's okay. It's all right. I was serving her and I was honoring her, and God and I had a conversation about it. It was okay. Friday, I have one meeting, a 30-minute meeting on the calendar after church. It's what it needs to be, and that's okay. Today and the next Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, yes, I will be done work at 3:00. And I will take my walks, and hopefully it's not going to be too hot. But I think instead of life controlling me, I seek God and I want him to control me, and I allow him to lead me. My husband, it drives my husband nuts sometimes because I don't turn my notifications on my phone. So he'll text me and I'm like, if you need to get a hold of me, you probably should call me, because then my phone lights up. It doesn't ring because I have that turned off, but it lights up. But he also knows, if it's an emergency, he calls. If it's not, that's okay. I think it's truly more about getting your priorities in order. And my priority is getting to heaven and making sure God says, well done, good and faithful servant. And scripture tells us, in Mark 1:35, I think it is, that in the morning while it was still dark, that Jesus got up and went out in a deserted place and he prayed. If you interpret that, and there's a lot of different ways you can interpret that, he went for that time of silence with his Father. Now, I'm not Jesus, and I'm not claiming to be, but I believe that's an example for us that turn off your notifications. It's okay. We survived in my life. I've had more time without a cell phone than with a cell phone because of my age, and I survived just fine. People say, well, do you not do social media? I'm on social media. I have, as we talked earlier, I haven't updated my LinkedIn in a while, and I need to have somebody do that for me. My Bible study that I do on my phone in the morning, one of my Bible studies, it automatically posts, I think, to a couple of social media accounts. I don't know which ones. And so people think I'm on there a lot. I'm really not. But I think it's really is getting your priorities in order, and then letting God direct your steps.
I love that. And I know that there's a lot of business leaders listening right now, because this is who's in our community who think this is great, Sandy. Like, I absolutely love that God wants me to prosper, and
Yes.
that making money is okay, and building a business that's highly profitable is okay, and gives me more opportunities to serve. I also would love to reclaim a lot of my time, because I am constantly being challenged with short-term pressures, decision-making, people wanting to get in touch with me, all the competing priorities. I want to be present at home. I want to be a good steward of my family, but that all seems really hard. Has there ever been a time in your life where that was hard, or maybe that became more clear to you? And then how did you make that shift towards the way you operate today as a business leader?
I think there was a time when it was probably more difficult, when my kids were younger. And I don't know if that we went into it, but I actually was a single mom of 3 before I married Dave. And finances were very tight. And when you're a single mom, your time is really strapped. But I remember one day just coming back to, wait a minute. If all I focus on is walking towards God, he's going to make sure everything else is taken care of. And the days that were very, very hard, and I cried a lot, and I'm not a crier. It was like, okay, Lord, I can't do anymore. I'm not sure how I'm going to pay for Megan's braces. And the next day, it all fell in place. And, I think it's that old, and there's a saying, and I can't remember who said it, that, and I'm not going to do it justice, that we worry so much and less than 1% of it comes true. And so I think we spend a lot of our time and energy on just thinking about tomorrow and what could happen. And God doesn't want us to. He's like, don't worry about tomorrow. I got that one covered. There's a lot of scriptures on don't worry about the past and don't worry about the future. I got it covered. I've forgiven you for your past mistakes and I've got the future handled. Just focus on today. And as a business owner, if you really think about, you do need to look to be good stewards of the business. You do need to watch your expenses and watch your income and know your clients and know where you're going. There are certain things that I'm not saying don't pay attention to, because I do. I look at our numbers almost daily. But sometimes it's looking at them going, okay, Lord, maybe we weren't really doing a good steward of that. Help me redirect. Let's talk about this. I'm a big believer that I talk to God all day long. He is the only person I talk to nonstop. And I think it's just knowing when I look at my numbers, there's sometimes in the past when I've looked at the numbers and I could have gotten very stressed. But it's like, okay, no, there is a lesson in this. And what is the lesson I need to learn? And I'm just giving this up to you. I say the surrender novena multiple times a day, and I surrender everything to God. And then I have my time in silence and I wait and don't always know that I'm hearing from him, but what he puts in my heart is usually what I hear from him.
I know that probably comes across as incredibly challenging to a lot of leaders. It comes across as incredibly encouraging to me. I know that I've had to surrender so much of my life to God's will and ways, his perfect plan for me. And it's not always linear. It's not always straight. In fact, it's sometimes a hard season. This year has been a harder season for a lot of business owners. It has been for me. When you have maybe financial uncertainty or the macroeconomic conditions, or you have a war-torn world that we're in, and you're trying to predict and forecast what the horizon might look like. And so let's just say you're in a room now with people who don't share in your faith perspective. And I'm sure you find yourself in rooms like that every now and again with other business leaders. I'm sure you're talking about uncertainty, because when I sit with CEOs and founders and entrepreneurs, that's kind of the topic du jour these days. So, how are you kind of meeting them where they are if they're not, believers, if they're not kind of deeply entrenched in their relationship with God, and talking to them about how to navigate this time of significant uncertainty?
I ask a lot of questions more than I talk. It's a question of, why do you feel uncertain? What prompts those feelings, or what's coming down the pike that you're uncertain about? And what tools or systems do you use that calm that certainty, or that you can look at of, I think our sales are going to dip 40% because of the tariffs and we can't build enough product. Okay, what does that mean? How do you combat that? It's a lot of questions. And to be honest, whether they're believers or not in the same God I have, 90% of the time, they know the answers. They sometimes just need to talk through it. It's, and I'm a big believer, everybody believes in something. It may not be my God, but they can't argue that gravity is gravity. They can't argue that if it's raining, it's raining. I mean, they can, but everybody has a belief in something. So I'd say probably 99.9% of the time, by the end of those types of conversations, it comes back to, what do you believe in? And sometimes they'll go, well, I believe the world's in hellacious condition, or I believe our government's ruined us, or I believe our government's getting us on the right track, or whatever it is. Okay, what do you believe about that you can impact? And that's where they usually get stopped. It's like, well, I can't fix the government. I guess I could run for office, but I can't do this. Okay, but what can you impact? What in your world can you impact? And a lot of times it truly is just taking them back to almost a moment of silence within themselves of asking those questions. When I sit in silence, I ask myself a lot of those questions and I wait for the answers. And sometimes with any of us, whether they're believers or not, it's having somebody else that can ask them those questions that they probably could ask themselves in their time of silence and maybe get more of a joyful or peaceful answer. So it's really more of, I've had a conversation with a business owner, and the end of the conversation, he goes, well, now that you think about it, I should probably just shut the business down.
Mm.
I said, well, how does that make you feel? And he goes, to be honest, there's a little bit of a sense of relief.
Relief, yeah.
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 And he did shut the business down. And he is now a business coach, coaching other businesses because he's learned through his mistakes. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm a big believer that you should be coached from people that have walked through what you're walking through. There's a lot of business coaches out there who have never owned a business other than their business coach,
right.
Coaching business, which isn't necessarily bad. It's still business. But he felt like he had to keep this company, because if he didn't have the company, what would he have? And through the conversation, it's like, what's in your heart? This is what I like to help people. Well, are you helping people by keeping your company open, or could you help more people if your company was closed? And he goes, well, I've had to lay off half my staff. I'm not so sure that's really helped them. Maybe it has, maybe it hasn't. He said, but I have to lay off the rest, or we'd shut our doors. I said, so through the conversation, sometimes the end result is something that they knew in their heart, but when they start articulating things, they realize it's an okay thing to say.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think too that so many business owners that are in these roles of stewardship, whether they founded the company or they were entrusted to lead it, really fear failure or what that means, the optics of it and kind of the judgment that comes with that. But, to your point where you're trusting in the most important relationship with your God, and you have more of an eternal perspective, and what does any of that even matter, even if there was judgment or questions around that? But I love your posture on listening, because we do have the answers, but we aren't often given that space.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about this form of podcasting and conversation. I get to learn from you, Sandy. I get to learn from all of our guests. Our listeners get to learn from their stories and lived experiences, and no two are the same, surprisingly, on the topic of stewardship. And I think what's really interesting about how you've grown your business too is not only your faith and the way you've stewarded it over time, but you've grown it with very little marketing. Okay, and I'm part of conscious capitalism, and this was the whole movement started by a marketing and business professor who studied why Whole Foods had so much loyalty without any marketing, and they ended up writing a book about it. So this is challenging traditional business beliefs of capitalism. So talk to me about and us about how you've grown without a lot of marketing, and how that's working out for you.
Well, it's funny. I had this conversation yesterday with one of our alliance partners. They spend, she said, about 20% of their expenses now are marketing. And I said, so
pretty common number, right? 20%, would you say?
Yeah. I said, so how do you measure that? And she goes, well, we're struggling in a couple of the ways that we're marketing on really measuring the impact. And I said, so what else could you do with that 20% if you weren't spending it on marketing? And she goes, oh my gosh, it would be awesome. We could do this, this, and this, this, and this. And I said, so have you tried that for a year? And she's like, no, hadn't even thought about it. And I'm a very strong believer that, one, I am not a marketing expert. Now, we do guide people in marketing, but our guidance to people in marketing is very different than traditional marketing. And I have one of my best friends owns a marketing firm. Her and I just completely differ on what that should look like. And I do believe there are certain industries and businesses that traditional marketing is probably a very valid way to grow. But our business is serving people. And I'm a big believer, if you serve people, they will help you grow your business. And we have been very blessed. I take a very strong posture that when I talk to clients, and I teach all our team, when you talk to clients, what do we do good for you? How does that make you feel when we help you? What is a strong thing that you feel like we could serve others that we've served you? And bringing it to their mind that, and one of the common questions is, do you know of someone else that you believe ABS could serve? And would you give an introduction to that? So we have grown. ABS had our best year ever last year. We're on target to beat that by probably, I'm going to say 20%. Our admin group's going to say 15. I'm going for that 20% over last year. And it is truly by serving and asking a lot of questions like, who else can we help? Who do you know that maybe could use ABS? Do you sleep better at night knowing that we're in your corner? Those are the types of questions. Even with, actually, none of our businesses do we do traditional marketing in. Even the event space, I'm very proud of our youngest son and daughter-in-law that run that event center. They were just voted for the second or third year. They've only been open 3 years. I think this is the second round of best business in Miami County, Kansas. And they were voted the best event space. And it truly is by serving others in the right way and enjoying it and asking, who else can we serve? How can we help you? I even think it's funny that we buy a business car, we buy vehicles like probably 90% of your audience does, and we buy locally, primarily because they take really good care of me, and I'm on the road a lot, and they take good care of our farm truck and Dave's work truck and everything. And they do very little marketing too. Now it's a small dealership, not real big, but I send people there all the time because of their service. And when I was in a couple months ago, the owner came out and said, hey, Sandy, I want to thank you for sending so-and-so in. They bought a new truck and, I really, really appreciate it. And I said, and I know you appreciate it. I know you honor it. I know you value your clients. That's why I send people to you, because of the service you give. And I think if we were all put here to serve each other and to grow God's kingdom. And that excites me, because how can I serve you? Which, if I serve you in the right way, that's going to grow God's kingdom and potentially could grow my business, because he knows I'm stewarding everything he gave me. I'm stewarding my relationship with you well. If I steward my relationship with you well, he's going to bring me more relationships. Some of those are going to be business relationships. It's not rocket science. It's the old adage. I laugh because we deal with a lot of bankers. And when I was young, banking was all about relationships. And life is all about relationships. And business is just people living life. It's the old adage. I do not believe in worrying about work-life balance, because I think there's not such a thing. Your work, if it's the right work for you, is part of your life. So how can you have a work-life balance when your work, the right work for you that God puts you on earth for, is part of your life? Yes, you'll spend more time on it than others sometimes, but all of our children know that. And they all understand our businesses. Some of them are very involved in our businesses because it is part of our life. I think that was a long answer to a question. I'm sorry.
No, I love that perspective, and particularly that we were made for relationship, which is the lifeblood of our business, the lifeblood of our life. It's how we create connections, and unfortunately, in this world, a lot of people are unlearning connection with all the automation and AI, and it's more important now than ever that we double down on connection in business and how important that is. And one of our most recent guests on the show spoke at his book launch recently, and he brought up a Hebrew word which for me really resonated, and I think it will for a lot of our audience. And it was avodah. And avodah has three meanings in one word: it's work, worship, and service to others. And it's not separating any of those; it's just represented in one word. So that's really stuck with me lately, is thinking about my avodah in my day to day, in the work. And you also brought up a creed for masoners or masonry people in the past that said, we who cut mere stones must be envisioning cathedrals.
Yep.
And thinking about what cathedral you're building through your work and your avodah, which has really been incredible. What is, in closing, maybe just like a principle that you would want to leave behind that you think is just essential for our listeners who are stewarding businesses to master, just to build an enduring business and the legacy that they hope to leave?
Well, I think and I say this all the time, that if you look at every person and know they are God, they are Jesus, and you treat them that way, everything else takes care of itself. And I've actually had somebody, when I was doing a keynote, they asked me afterwards, they said, but even people who kill people and they're hateful people, I said, that is a hard one. But how many times do you wonder, or I wonder this a lot, if throughout those people's lives, if they would have been treated with respect and care and love, maybe they wouldn't have pulled that gun. I don't know. I just know that I was put on earth to live in the relationship of love. And that means it's not my place to judge anyone. So I think the biggest principle is know that you're put here to serve, and get very clear on what that looks like for you. I think we talked about relationships, and I will also point out one thing. A lot of people say, well, you focus on relationships, but yet you don't work that many hours and you spend a lot of time in silence. And I said, the reality is, I learned a long time ago a lot about me. Everybody thinks I'm an extrovert. The reality is I'm actually very much an introvert. I know that I have to spend my time in silence, and I have to spend time recharging with my Lord in order to give you 110% when I'm with you. And that's part of my job, and that's my journey. But I think there's a lot of people who haven't spent the time getting to know themselves well enough. And it's hard to get to know other people when you really don't even know yourself. And so I'm a big believer that just get to know yourself and know you're here to serve. Everything else falls into place.
I love that. And it's interesting that when I go to CEO summits and people who are kind of contemplating how to become better leaders, more conscious business leaders, a lot of it boils down to their own spiritual perspective. Like, a lot of people are seeking meditation and other forms of just like awakening and forgiveness of some of the pain and the trauma that they've had, in their lifetime, with family even, and other circumstances. But it's a lot of weight that we carry as business leaders, and really we're not in control. There is an illusion of control, and you did such a great job of illustrating your faithfulness today and your surrender. And I really appreciate that, Sandy. So thank you for coming on the Steward Chair. It was such a gift.
Well, thank you. I feel honored to be here, because I think what you're doing, no matter what's going on in the world, what you're doing is important. And I think one of the things that most business owners need to remember is, when you quit mattering, you should shut the doors. And you matter. And I think that's important.
Couldn't have said it better, Sandy. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Wow. My sincere thanks to Sandy and for you for joining us here today. Her insights on finding purpose and prioritizing stillness are a testament to the power of a deeply lived Christian worldview that I so appreciate. But no matter your faith, perspective, and background, I hope you're able to find something good from today's conversation. And now, here's your steward's call. This is one key moment you can take away from the conversation, and I think you can put into practice today. Our most important resource is our time. And following Sandy's example, I hope that you can take at least a moment to turn off your phone's notifications, get still, and ask God to reveal your purpose for the day. He promises that He has a plan, and by surrendering your day to Him, you can make sure that every step is a step in the right direction. And I'm not saying that's easy, because I struggle with it too. Now remember, building a legacy isn't a future event. It's a daily practice. The legacy of our faith will be the most important one that we leave behind. So if you found value in today's conversation, I ask that you please take a moment to follow the Steward Chair wherever you get your podcasts. It's the best way to ensure you'll never miss an episode. And also to help us grow this community, we'd love for you to share this episode with a leader you respect. A final thank you goes out to our incredible team, as always, our executive producers, Quentin Thomas and Thomas Master-Totero, and our managing editor, Daniel Master-Totero. They are the true stewards behind this show's production, and I'm your host and researcher, Jeff Bond. And with that, now go and be a leader worth following.